Okay.
Yep.
Are we in the air?
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. In addition, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Walsh. It's my honor to be conducting the meeting today. I'd ask our fellow commissioners to introduce themselves before we start.
Douglas Kellner.
Andy Spano.
Greg Peterson. And around the table, please.
Todd Valentine.
Kimberly Galvin.
John Conklin.
Tom Connolly.
Joe Burns. Anna Sinistro.
Bill McCann.
Kathleen O'Keefe.
Brad. Thank you. Our guest, please.
Elizabeth Kellner.
Elizabeth, nice to meet you.
Josh Sherman. Laura Bierman with the League of Women Voters. Elizabeth Mahler. Susan Leary with Common Cause New York.
Frank Moore.
John Miles. Bob Warren, Lieutenant Version.
Thank you all. Our first item of business is to address the minutes. Does anyone have any additions or subtractions? If not, we'll accept the motion to approve them.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And with your permission, if we have no objection, one of our staff has to leave before this meeting is over. We'd like to move item number 4 up to the present.
Or 4A. So moved.
Or is correct. Yes, thank you. Okay. Any objections? So we'll do.
Commissioners, what you have before you is a 6-page document because we added an addendum to the petition section of this. This document is the prima facie review suggested determinations by the staff regarding all of the petitions, specific objections, hearings, etc. that we've done since we last met. As you can see, it's been a great deal of work reviewing each and every piece of information that's come through the door, holding hearings on the same. There's 17 attendant court cases that are, many of which are still pending, which one was 1 o'clock today. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to explain them to you. As you can tell, the report is very well done and has much more information because Anna did it and not me, so she gets all the credit for that. But if,
It's a team process.
if there are any questions, we can answer them at this point. Otherwise, I would just respectfully request that the document be moved in its entirety, accepting all the staff recommendations. As a result of this, determinations and various forms of correspondence need to be sent out. It's quite a lot of work for the staff.
All right. Well, just so, because people who are watching around the state don't have the document in front of them, if you could bear with me, let me just read it quickly. That we have, the staff is recommending that the following petitions be declared invalid. Rachel McPherson for governor, Democratic primary. P. Bunjanow slate for delegates and alternates in the 107th Assembly District Democratic primary. P. Schick slate of delegates and alternates in the 3rd Judicial District 101st Assembly District Democratic primary. B. Fonseca, delegates and alternate slate for the 9th Judicial District Independence primary. Fonseca's slate for state committee in the 39th Senate District Independence primary. Sakima Green Brown, Assembly 104th District Conservative Party. Joseph DeFalco, State Senate 46th District Independence Party. Jay Wisniewski, delegate slate, 3rd Judicial District, 103rd Assembly District, Working Families Party. Kay Moultrie, delegate, 3rd Judicial District, 110th Assembly District, Working Families Party. B. Milbauer, delegate slate, 5th Judicial District, 118th Assembly District, Working Families Party. T. Weisbeck, State Committee, 146th Assembly District, Democratic Party. M. Schaefer, Judicial Delegate, 3rd Judicial District, 111th Assembly District, Working Families Party. James Skoufis, Assembly, 99th Assembly District, Democratic Party. Kenneth Smith, 146th Assembly District, Democratic Party. Kevin Cahill.
Wait.
That
I'm
one
sorry.
remains valid.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
We're out of
Thank
order
you,
here.
thank you, because
We don't have the same list. that
Oh,
either.
sorry.
I don't have the same list.
You're right, that's out of order.
Yeah.
That's page 4, but it's stapled wrong. Sorry.
all right, let me go to page 2. That's why it's
Mine is stapled wrong.
stapling.
Yeah,
All right.
mine was too.
All right, so we're missing certificates of authorization or acceptance. Now, are these are all separate from the list we've already read, so I need to read these again on page 2?
Well, you're missing one of the petitions, I believe, too.
Which one?
The addendum.
Just read it.
That's Sam Sloan one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, read it.
Sam Sloan, Nenad Bach, Gita Rankoff, and Neil Grimaldi, insufficient signatures, so invalid petition.
Now, you've got 7 authorizations invalid for 62nd Senate District Conservative Party, Gia Arnold. 94th Assembly District Independence Party, Stephen Katz. 100th Assembly District Conservative Party, Eileen Gunther. 108th Assembly District Working Families Party, John T. McDonald III. 116th Assembly District Conservative Party, John L. Byrne III. 140th Assembly District Independence Party, William J. Reese. 147th Assembly District Independence Party, David J. Pietro. So those are all out for no certificates of authorizations. Then the staff is recommending that 3 sets of objections and be dismissed because of invalid specifications, and that's the objections to the, so in this case the candidate stays in, it's the objections that are being thrown out. 98th Assembly District Republican primary, Kevin Hudson. 98th Assembly District Republican primary, Michael Morgillo. 98th Assembly District Conservative primary, David Castriconi. Daniel, thank you, Castriconi. All right, then we have all right, it says summary of staff findings. All right, but these are not prima facie, right? So these are...
They were where specs were filed, but there was no hearing required, based upon what the
just
specific
counting
objections.
from the specs.
Mostly discounting. Yeah.
Should I be reading them now, or should we be making the motion to adopt the prima facie list first?
Whichever you'd prefer, Commissioner. I think either one works. We could make a motion to adopt the prima facie and keep them separate for purposes of that.
So moved. Second. So, Mr. Chair, we need to take a vote on the motion to adopt the prima facie list as reported in writing and as I just read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry.
Can I say something? I noticed that you have an addendum list that wasn't read in the original report. These candidates have not received any objections. There have been no objections to them, and I don't think under Section 16-102 of New York election law, you can throw candidates off the ballot if there have been no objections received to those candidates.
We're throwing them off for prima facie because the petition on its face was insufficient.
Or shouldn't you have notified these candidates about this?
Well, they'll get notice after today's meeting.
But you weren't noticed before, though.
Well, because the petitions were not filed, they did not meet the threshold to trigger 6-154 of the election law, where objections are not required because the petitions on their face are invalid.
And what was the objection to Rachel McPherson?
There are insufficient signatures. It's obvious that there are insufficient signatures.
There was one more issue with hers.
And they're missing an address.
No
There's
residence
no
address.
address of the candidate.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we already voted on that,
Yes, we did.
so now we need to vote on the rest of the reports. Do you want me to read them, or do you want to read them, Kim?
I can just set them out for you quickly. If you want me to read the individuals ones, I can. The next section deals with specific objections that were filed but required no hearing. So basically, it was objection to the stating of the office, or generally it was insufficient signatures. Would you like me to go through them individually, or?
Yes, please, just so that people
Right.
who are watching on the internet know what we're doing.
Okay, the first is Nolan Simith, JD delegates for the 8th JD, 147th AD Independence Party. Carol Sheehan. I don't have that.
Bottom of page 2 was...
Not 3.
Was DeFalco, 46 cents.
Oh, I'm sorry. Specific objections. Okay, the candidate was Joseph. I'll start over. Specs were filed and no hearing was required. The first candidate, Joseph DeFalco, member of Senate, 46th Senate District, Independence Party. Am I on the right page now? Yeah. Then Gita Rankoff for Comptroller, Democratic Party. Neil Grimaldi for Attorney General, Democratic Party. Scott Del Conte et al. For JD delegates and alternate delegates in the 5th JD, 120th AD, Democratic Party. Alan Trombley et al., JD delegates, 5th JD, 118th AD, Democratic Party. Peggy Beauchard et al., JD alternate delegates for the 5th JD, 118th AD, Democratic Party. T.E.H. LERS Earls et al., JD delegates and alternate delegates, 8th JD, 148th AD, Independence Party. Stephen Katz, member of Assembly, 94th AD, Independence Party.
I'm sorry, that Ellers is valid.
The report is that it's valid. All the others were invalid.
Okay, I'm
This
sorry,
one's valid.
that one is valid.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Stephen Katz, member of Assembly, 94th AD, Independence Party, and again, we've started with the petition being invalid at this point. Zephyr Teachout for governor on the Democratic Party
It's valid.
remains valid. And Loretta Ford, member of Assembly, 95th Assembly District on the Republican Party, is invalid.
And just to note that the report on the objections to the teach-out petition is that the specs are based on the candidate's residency qualification, which is beyond the ministerial scope.
Right, there's a litigation proceeding, I think as we speak, in Brooklyn regarding that legal issue outside the board scope. The next section is hearings conducted. We actually notified the parties they came in, had a hearing on the specs. The first one is Nolan Simith, JD delegates, 8th JD, 147th AD, Independent. The petition remains valid. Carol Sheehan, JD delegates, 8th JD, 139th AD, Independence. The petition remains valid. Kenneth Smith, member of Assembly, 146th AD, Democratic Party. Petition remains valid. Kevin Cahill, member of Assembly, 103rd AD, Independence. The petition is invalid. Susan Zimmett, member of Assembly, 103rd AD, Democratic Party. Petition is invalid. Andrew Falk, member of Assembly, 94th AD, Independence Party. The petition remains valid. Raymond Walter, member of Assembly, 146 AD, Independence Party. The petition remains valid. Christopher Farber, member of Assembly, 101st AD, Independence Party. The petition remains valid. Donna Held, member of Senate, 38th SD, Republican Party. Petition remains valid. Richard Cochiera, member of Assembly, 99th AD, Independence Party. Petition remains valid. Ruth Hassel Thompson, member of the Senate, 36 SD, Democratic line. Petition remains valid. Denver Jones, member of the Senate, 52nd SD, Republican line. Petition is invalid. Jacqueline Romaine, member of Assembly, 98th AD, Democratic line. Petition is invalid. Elise Tutini, member of Assembly, 98th AD, Independence line. The petition is invalid. Bob Castelli, member of the Senate, 40th SD, the Republican line. The petition remains valid. Portum et al., JD delegates and alternate delegates, 8th JD, 147th AD, Democratic line. The petition remains valid. Meyer et al., JD delegates and alternates in the 8th JD and the 146 AD on the Democratic line. The petition is invalid. And lastly, an OTV petition for member of the Senate and the 8th SD for the Green Party line. The recommendation is the petition is invalid.
All right, I move the adoption of the staff report as drafted and read.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Kim, thank you. Commissioner Fowler, thank you for your assistance. All right, back to the beginning, executive updates. Bob Brown and Todd Valentine.
Yeah, well, what you just read was what we've been busy with since our last meeting. We held to longer or less degrees. There were 18 hearings on petitions that involved notices for that. Of course, that was all the time spent by the staff intaking the documents, reviewing them, and adding into more details about the numbers that we will file. But that's what we do this time of year, and we are moving forward. We're actually in another filing period at this point. The filing period for independent petitions for Congress is ongoing as we speak through next Tuesday. And then the independent petition filing period for the state and local offices begins on August 12th.
In addition to that information, I know there are a few commissioners who've joined us in the room. If they want to at least add them to the list, I'll start behind me if we could. Mr. Ward.
Dennis Ward from Erie County Board of Elections.
And our new commissioner in Genesee.
Lori Mondany, Genesee County.
There's also a candidate here as well.
Mr. Costello.
So, as some of you know, and I know three were able to attend the most recent election commissioner conference just ended this morning in Lake George. I was happy. Todd and I had a chance to get away for a little while on Wednesday to go up to the conference, to be there in person. The rest of the staff, we web conferenced them in, so the association was very helpful in setting that up so that we could, in one way or another, be there. It's difficult with the political calendar in an even year for us to be as well represented as we would like to be, but certainly it was nice to meet with everybody and to have a few minutes to share some ideas and find out what's on their mind. We do have a new slate of officers. I enjoyed getting a chance to swear them in last night. So we have Michael Northrup as the new president. Jenny Bacon is the vice president. Vicki Olin is the second vice president. And I was a little surprised. The third vice president, a friend who I thought was retiring, but apparently he's decided to stick it out. Tom Burke is the third vice president, so he's in it for another term there. And also they appointed Nancy as the executive committee chair, Nancy Levin. She has been the chair. We work with her to set up the monthly telephone calls, so it's nice to see that. And Mr. Ward is now the chair of the legislative committee. I'm sure we will hear some wonderful and interesting ideas on how to make the election law better, even from a Erie County point of view. So other than that, I want to also welcome at our first meeting Kathleen as a new appointee. I know we appointed her at the last meeting. You appointed her at the last meeting. I appreciate that. And also she was able to start in that period of time and to join our team, and we continue to make some changes as far as filling positions where we can, and a few people are retiring. Most notably, we still have the IT director that we're working on. I think that's probably one of the more key positions. It's a civil service position. Todd and I have been reviewing the resumes. We finished the canvas, and we're trying to meet with Dave Loomis, who would agree to help us with the recruiting. We're meeting with him on Tuesday to go through and come up with a schedule of interviews so that we can make a recommendation, because it's one of the more key positions that we are looking to do, and I know the staff has really been great to step up and to help us in his absence.
How many people have shown an interest in the job? Yeah.
Well, it's a canvas, so we have, the respondents to the canvas were about 8 to 10, but it's also a grade point, so who is reachable is closer to 5 or 6. summer transfers, so that's a different eligibility. So we have to go through the list to see if they're interested, and can we, how many are reachable.
Thank you.
I have to say, when we interviewed for Dave, I think we had interviewed over a dozen people to find him. And he was certainly stood out as a natural choice, having gone through that list. So we are hopeful that there will be another standout that just comes to mind, because we think he is going to be a very difficult person to replace, because he was such a valuable member of our operation.
The legislature, just as they were getting ready to adjourn, passed a bill extending again for another year the use of lever voting machines for school board, village, and other district elections. And in the bill this time, they put in a mandate that the State Board of Elections prepare a comprehensive report on how the phase-out of lever voting machines can be implemented in a way to minimize problems with those districts that are now using them. So I was just wondering whether the executive directors have conferred yet on how we are going to prepare that report, and whether we anticipate scheduling hearings around the state to try to solicit input in a way that we can come up with a positive report that will both convince the affected districts and the legislature that there's no need to continue using lever voting machines.
That's a good question.
Well, it hasn't been signed into law yet.
It hasn't gone.
Fair answer.
It has not gone to the governors yet, so, and there's
But
no...
I think there's a pretty good bet that the governor's going to
It's like a swamp and alligator.
I think generally when yes, it hasn't gone to the governor yet. I do anticipate that he will sign it. I anticipate. It doesn't mean I...
Right. I mean, I'm still opposed to it, but
Certainly
I have
if we
submitted letters to the governor opposing the bill for the prior two extenders.
Certainly if we started to anticipate the need to do the report and it were not signed, certainly we could stop that effort. But, we can look to, how best to fit it into our calendar, because I think the report is due sometime early January, and I think if we don't at least calendar some way of putting it into our existence, we're going to be pretty busy through the first week of December certifying the election and conducting the election, so I don't want to start it then. But certainly, we can meet and talk and come up with, I think it speaks to actually reaching out to certain constituency groups to get their input. So we should at least come up with a calendar that can best accommodate us, knowing how busy we will be with the primary and the general election and the petition reviews.
I guess the short answer is no, they haven't met yet.
Well,
We're aware of it.
just,
We could recommend at your next meeting a strategy, and
I would appreciate that.
That would help.
I just want to keep it on the agenda. I think that my perception is that most of the leadership is against extending it, but they're continuing to do this because people from these constituencies are complaining, and part of it may be that they just need that little push, just like we needed it because we were under a federal court order. We found out that it really wasn't all that bad.
That's a shove, not a push.
Yeah, that's a shove off the cliff.
Off a cliff is right.
It wasn't all that terrible when we switched from the lever voting machine.
Well, I think that answer was fairly clear.
Thank you.
continuing the council's report, as Bob had mentioned, is Kathleen O'Keefe's first meeting with us. Welcome. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much,
You have
Commissioner.
your opportunity now to make your first report.
Well, it's been very busy, as has already been stated. I have not really been involved much in the petition process. Kim has that process very well oiled and working like a machine, and it worked out really well. I've sort of been observing, and I plan to obviously take a much bigger role the next time around. What I have focused on has been the existing complaints that have continued to be in the unit, as well as some of these new programs. The compliance unit, I think, is up and running very well. I have to give the staff a lot of credit for that. It was already operational when I came on. They are doing what they're supposed to do. It is a new world, so the candidates and the treasurers have a lot of questions. We have repeatedly told them that we now have resources to offer assistance, that we are actually functioning as a partnership with the committees, the treasurers, and the candidates. There's a lot of questions because they're getting letters they haven't seen before, and we are in a new world. It's a new paradigm, but it is going well so far. We also have our independent expenditure piece that we're working on, continuing to finalize that, as well as the public financing program, which we'll talk at a later part of the agenda.
Could you quickly summarize what the new differences are for people who are filing, what they're facing?
Yes, I certainly will. So the way that this new process is working is that when a filing comes in, a member of the staff will be assigned, and they will go through the entire filing in a facial manner. So that, for instance, if you have, for 20 years, which we're getting a lot of comments like this, for 20 years somebody's been making a certain filing on a certain schedule, but it was the wrong schedule. In the past, there really wasn't the resources available to get back to everybody that used the wrong schedule and say, you need to put it on this other schedule. Now we are attempting to do that. On a facial review of the filing, we can see, are they missing addresses? Have you used the wrong schedule? Is there an over-contribution, and so forth? If you have a perfect filing, and about a third of the folks actually do, then you are not going to hear from us. Your filing was good, and we're just going to continue on with the next filing that we have to review. If you have issues that we are calling training issues that have to do with things like using the wrong schedule, so you've provided the information that you needed to provide, but it's on the wrong schedule, then you will get what we are calling a training letter, which basically instructs you for the next filing how to do it correctly. The training letters go out on Wednesday every week, so we are now in our third week, and training letters went out on Wednesday. The training letters basically say, please amend, but they don't say must amend because it's really an instructional letter. Then we have the third category, which is a deficiency of some sort. Deficiencies include, for instance, a credit card that was paid, but it wasn't itemized what the credit card was used for. And there's a variety of other types of issues that are considered deficiency issues. If you have a deficiency issue, you will get a letter that goes out on Friday. Now, if you have training and deficiency issues, those letters go out on Friday, and they cover both of those categories. When you get a deficiency letter, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says, we'd like you, you must amend your filing, you have 30 days to do it, the respond by date is here on the letter, there's a person that signs the letter that has actually done the review of the filing. We want people to reach out if they have questions. Once they get this letter, and they're going to get it's a very elaborate checklist of what is actually the concerns, and then people can reach out to the person that did the review for assistance on how to actually comply with those filings and the issues that have been raised in the deficiency letter. Our hope is that everybody in a perfect world responds within those 30 days, everything is corrected, and we basically consider you in complete compliance. The letter does say, however, that if you do not comply, there is a possibility that there may be an enforcement proceeding or some type of enforcement steps taken against the committee. So that's, in a nutshell, and it's kind of a long nutshell, but that's how this program is intended to work. And I have been telling folks that I talk to, we are friendly. We are a friendly compliance unit. We are here to assist, and we want to do what we can to make you have filings that are accurate, transparent, and timely.
Thank you.
But September 1st, Risa Sugarman starts, who is our new Director of Campaign Finance Enforcement. And anyone who has not responded to a deficiency letter within the deadline on the letter, then that file immediately goes to enforcement. Is that right?
Well, the process is really not clear to us. I mean, we do have the statute, and that gives us some indication of how this is supposed to work. Obviously, Risa has not come on yet. There's plenty of opportunity. I believe Kim and I will sit down with her and try to sort out exactly how those processes will work. Clearly, she has a mandate from the legislature and the governor to take a more aggressive stand when it comes to enforcement issues. And I think as a result of the legislature doing that, they were very smart to create the compliance unit, which is looking to minimize the types of serious allegations that may have to go to the enforcement unit. So I think we're in a new day, and we are working those details out as we go along.
Just with regard to the 30-day, I mean, there is a 30-day compliance, but what we had discussed internally, and we will discuss with her, is, you know, if you have someone actively trying to fix their filing for 28 days or 29 days, and they're 98% there, we're going to continue on the 31st or 32nd day to bring them into full compliance. It's not like, hey, you did 95% of your work and you're really doing well, and blow the whistle and off they go. So, well, of course, we have to work out those processes with her. But she has the ability to come in and take them, but we'll have to work it out.
Thank you. Any more questions?
And with regard to the, as Kathleen said, I don't know if she could have come in at a busier time. I don't know if there has been a busier time since I've been here for 7 years. But with regard to the cases, as I mentioned in the prima facie report, I think there was 17 cases, many of which are still pending, simply waiting for the board to meet today and to see the determination. We have one at 1 o'clock today, so that's where I'll be headed. But they're basic routine campaign ballot access issues. There's nothing really out of the ordinary.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Well, I think we do owe some gratitude to Kim for getting this all done in a timely manner, because I think this was much heavier than any year that I've seen since I became commissioner. Yeah. And you got it all done in time, which is great.
And I think we all agree on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, compliance. Bill McCann, please.
Hi, Commissioner. Just to follow up on Kathleen and Kim's report, just again, we're in the process of implementing the new compliance unit, which is essentially going to be under the co-leadership of Kathleen and Kim. The compliance unit and counsel's office have been merged under the new plan, and so they're in the process of overseeing that transition, so that's going well. And again, the other issues that they've raised are all proceeding, so that's essentially what I have to report.
You don't have any questions? Thank you. Election operations, Anna, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've been busy in ops. Everybody's been busy. Everybody's been helping everybody else, so I think universally we're all grateful for the assistance everybody provides at this time of year. Ops has been busy on a parallel course with all of the ballot access tasks, with continuing to update all of our procedures. We have another group of procedures that I expect will go out to boards next week. We post them there. There's an informational portal that the commissioners have login rights to, and all of the revised procedures are there. Once they're all revised, we're revamping that whole site so that it's a lot more usable for the commissioners to get to and download forms or review processes or make sure that they understand something clearly or can call us to discuss anything that's there. So we'll continue to do that, and when we revise that next batch of procedures, we'll provide them to you as well so that you'll have them handy if you want them, and I can certainly give you all login credentials if you'd rather get that information that way. Our Clear Ballot vendor, who was proposing a central count system through the statewide contract process at OGS, has decided to withdraw from that statewide contract. However, they continue to seek certification. Their source code, their software is being reviewed now, and we expect them to receive a certification from the state board, and then they'll have to go through local procurement for any county that wants to purchase that system and follow, obviously, the state laws and local procurement laws to do that. The issue with the statewide contract clearly is a performance bond and things like that. That your limited resources, when you put them into a contract value that's over $75 million, is a little difficult for a startup company that it's going to have a limited exposure here. But they do want a New York State certification. They feel there's much value to that, not only in New York, but where else they can take that. So we expect to see their product moving towards certification certainly long before the end of the year. They'll be on site next week to take our team through all of their configuration requirements so that we know how the vendor proposes the system be set up and operates. If any of you are in the area and you want to see that, I'll get you an exact date if you're interested. I would like, on a side note with Clear Ballot, to at some point get back on the table the discussion of using an automated tool to assist with the post-election audit that the statute requires. And Clear Ballot was the firm that we did several pilot projects with at the county level to see if there was value to that. And the counties that were involved in the pilot project certainly felt there was. So we need to get that discussion back before the commissioners when the rest of this dust settles. We are working with the IT unit and staff in the building and the consultants that they've hired to revise this ballot access process to make the notices to candidates that the system produces a little easier to deal with. Making small changes now, you have to go to IT and revamp the whole system as opposed to just fixing a typo in a standard mail merge kind of letter. So we're working with IT in those areas. We did conduct our ballot drawing, so today's certification, which we hope we'll get to this afternoon after today's meeting, will reflect the placement of candidates on the ballot as their positions were drawn. We did that drawing on Wednesday. We welcomed, with the assistance of the Schenectady County Board, a delegation from the Philippines. It involved their House of Representatives Tribunal, Supreme Court judges, the consulate from New York. They were very interested in how optical scan voting equipment is used in New York, how the public has accepted it, what sorts of issues there are. So we invited, they wanted to come to Albany since we don't specifically run an election. We set them up with Schenectady. They were using similar equipment, and John Ferry from our staff met the delegation there, as did Josie Jackson, who is in our compliance unit. Josie is from the Philippines, so it was nice that she could go there and see those people, and that's the photograph that's in our monthly report for you. They were very impressed with our security procedures. They have none. They were really surprised at the steps that we take to protect the data that builds the election, and then all of the various steps that follow from pre-election right through the audit, that kind of thing. So they took back a lot of information in our sample forms, and certainly the conversation that the commissioners in Schenectady shared with them was really nuts and bolts, ground level, what they needed to hear. So we thought that was very helpful, and they seemed very pleased with the opportunity. Other than that, I do not think we have anything to add. We have a summary in our report of the petitions. 427 petitions were filed with us for statewide petitions, and acceptances, 188 acceptances, 162 authorizations. We've had 12 declinations, but only 9 substitutions, and then the objections and specifications are just aggregated here on the report, but clearly your prima facie report addresses the disposition of all of those objections and specs. Joe, do you have anything you want to add to this? Or?
Could I add something to Anna's report? Sorry, Anna. Basically, I just wanted to say that all the specs that come in the building, the council's office has now 3 people. It would have been absolutely impossible to do without staff from every unit spending a great deal of their time in working the specs. And you know, some work them better than others, so my special thanks goes out to those that actually worked very hard. And one particular issue that I think it's necessary to raise that hopefully we can discuss at some later point is we were faced with an unusual situation this year in that a huge set of specs came in against a petition that had pre-printed objections on many of the pages. And, you know, when it's pre-printed, who are you dealing with? You probably didn't look through every one and then type it in black ink yourself and then write the additional objections. So I think it was an offhanded way for that objector, and I said so in court when I appeared, to get us to do that particular work. I was very strong that we couldn't change our process in the middle of a cycle and ignore what we knew were to be less than honest specific objections. But I think moving forward, the board and the staff should look to make a recommendation that when someone comes, because it took many, many people many, many, many days of time to work through just, and then the candidate remained on by well over 2,700 signatures when they only needed 1,000. At the end of that whole day, a small number were thrown out. But yet it occupied a great deal of staff for a great number of days. So I think moving forward, we probably need to come up with a policy when something is so flagrantly, and Commissioner Kellner is raising his hand.
Well, I raised, certainly Kim knows that I circulated
We were in the middle of them.
two emails strongly opposing even working the specifications because, in my view, the specification is frivolous when they have a pre-printed form that raises NR&E on every signature, because what they are trying to do is make us do their work for them.
It's a shot.
And it's not, in fact, a specification, because they're just saying we're raising everything, you figure it out. The City Board of Elections, long ago, 1995, 1996, something like that, adopted a provision in their rule that made it clear that the City Board will not work specifications that they regard as frivolous. I don't think a written rule to that effect is even required. I think that if somebody makes a filing that is frivolous, that we shouldn't work it. But certainly, if you want to draft a formal resolution or a formal proposal to the rules to submit to the commissioners, we could do that at the next meeting. But
I might suggest that, going along with that, but I think it would be the consensus of the commissioners that we don't have to formally adopt a policy. Let's see how it works, but certainly make. I won't speak for everybody. Certainly myself. To entertain the spurious objections, which are just going to eat up a lot of time, should be thrown out.
Except that if I saw the numbers on this one, it was ridiculous. I know when you throw out a couple of signatures, thousands were valid. But what happens if someone prints something? We throw it out because it looks frivolous, and it's not. So I would just ban this altogether. I would just say, you can't do it this way. You'll have to do it another way by writing out what the hell.
Well, my issue was with those pre-printed, there were also additional written-in ones, and I thought, and I was pretty strong on the issue that it would have been, because it was such a change in policy from doing all specs, that in the middle of a cycle it would have been somewhat unfair without any notice. So I tended to agree along the lines of, we've already started this, we're 6 days into it. With regard to your suggestion, I mean, if they're all printed, you can understand, but these were so blatantly frivolous. But on issues like that, we could probably come up with a policy where, you spot check 5 on every page to see if there's any validity to them, to verify, because I certainly wouldn't want to discount specific objections that were otherwise valid that just looked bad.
Yeah, there are people who like to be neat.
And that is what
That's not me.
That is what New York City does, is that they take a, for a petition of this size, they would have randomly picked about a dozen and looked them up. And if all 12 of, and if it was clear that what they were in other words, the objector would have had to get close to all of those dozen in order to overcome the presumption that it was frivolous.
Well, even if we could do more, but I know that Anna raised it at the hearing, you're basically trying to get us to do your work. And I told the court in front of everyone that, the board looked at these as frivolous. We did them because we were I had a sense of obligation to do them, but moving forward, I think we need to come up with some sort of balance to, because it really did take like 12 people 5 days or 6 days.
It would have been easier to just find, you needed 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot. It would have been easier to validate the first 1,000 good signatures we got, they were on, and forget
Because
everything
the person
else.
is an incumbent senator that filed
and
4
that's
times as many, yeah.
When I saw it before you worked on it, and I saw it later.
Yeah.
The difficulty with the validating is, does that then say, here's the 1,000 good? And there's 2 court cases, an invalidator and a validator,
Right.
so that is not
That's why you
necessarily
gotta
fair
dismiss
to
it.
the people in court, and it sets us up for a bad court.
Each fact.
We just raised it as a time, you could manage time. It takes X people this much time to do
And
1,000.
yeah, luckily
look,
in
this
as opposed to
case,
everything else, but clearly
where they-
that's an issue. It's not
Where
an
they
answer.
preprint, NRNE
NRNE.
on every page,
Single
and the same
Every
with the
single
subscribing
signature in the
witnesses.
petition.
When I
Somebody
challenged them on it, they wouldn't
It
even look me
actually
in the
wasn't
eye.
every one of them, because there were some pages where they had Fs on every page.
Forgery.
But,
Luckily,
well,
I
as
guess,
said,
it came
I
in
didn't
first.
agree with your
Well,
decision to go ahead and work it, but I would hope that the commissioners, if you want to
I think
vote.
we should do something.
Luckily, it came in first, so there was nothing else to do, but,
That's right.
I think you can see that we have unanimous.
yeah, we're going to have to
Commissioner.
think it through at a staff level and get, because, had that not been first and come in the middle of the cycle, it could have very well delayed the work on the real specs that needed to be done before the court appearances.
We don't have that
Delayed the
time or
hearings.
that luxury. That
No, we don't have too many
So we please
extras.
we got something back in the future. Thank
Okay.
you. NVRI PIO, John Conklin, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, as Todd said, we're seeing what everybody's doing in the agency, and there's always questions from the press and the public about the petitions. We've been very busy with that. But at the same time, the July periodic for this year was due in the middle of that, and that's probably the biggest financial disclosure filing the agency gets. So there were lots of questions about what people were filing with regard to their financial disclosures, so we had many, many questions about that as well. We had 51 FOIL requests in July. We also remotely participated in the Q&A for the Election Commissioners Association conference yesterday. Greg and Patrick in our unit made a short presentation on HHS money for that conference, and we're available for questions. In addition, we posted the results for the June 24th federal primary to the website, and as a part of the petition process, we posted a list of who's filed petitions for the state and local primary. So you have anything to add, Tom?
Well, I think just building on what a lot of people have been saying about working the specs and what you were saying about answering a lot of questions, we've received a lot of questions along the petition process time frame about various questions about what constitutes a valid objection, things like that, or how to even properly fill out their petition. We usually redirect people to the Running for Office guide that we have on our website that Election Operations has put together. And I think just one of the telling numbers is that, out of, and I'd say the 427 plus the 4 statewide petitions, the 431 petitions, more than 93% were valid straight off the bat, and then only a total of just over 6% ended up being invalidated, and that kind of got split between 13 that were, invalid just from the prima facie review, and the other 15 were a result of either the specs being worked or the outcome of the hearings. So I just think that kind of really speaks to the quality of the information that Anna's unit has put together that we direct people to when they have those questions. The other thing that I'll bring up is that obviously next Friday is the deadline for military ballots to go out to voters regarding the state and local primary. So we will be working with the county boards to make sure they get all their ballots prepared and uploaded in time for that and mailed out, obviously. And then upon certification of the language for the ballot propositions, when that happens, we will work with our IT department to get that up online as quickly as possible. John and I have also had discussions with our translation vendor and also the vendor we use for publishing the legal notices, which will be required come this fall. So we'll be working on that as soon as that language is approved. We'll be working on getting that translated both in text form but also audio form for the ballot marking devices. and getting all the information ready to go for publishing the required legal notices.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Tom. ITU.
Just excuse me, I have to go
Sorry.
for it now.
Okay. Dan Falvo, Elizabeth Mowry.
Yes, not here. As Bob mentioned, we are in need of an IT director. And as he also mentioned, Dave Loomis will be difficult to replace. He had a lot of skills that we could use. So in the meantime, we are working on keeping our projects moving forward and continuing supporting the agency with the services and systems that we now maintain. And that's about it.
We're working on upgrading the campaign finance filing system.
Right.
Tell us where that contract stands. And
that we actually have our project manager on site now. So that is moving. They're working on the scope document and the business rules with our IT staff. And let's see, our Nysboe to refresh, we're waiting for the contract to be signed on that so we can move forward with that as well.
Any further questions?
With regard to the candidate management, I know we worked hard. The money was identified for the candidate management campaign finance, both in our budget and in the statewide Office of Information Technology Services. The assistance we have at the initial phase is the IT budget, and I know Dave, before he left, worked very hard to get all the approvals in place once the budget was in place, to get the project manager and the technical lead. We did succeed in offering a position through IT for the project manager. We also selected a technical lead, but he also got offered apparently a better offer somewhere else. We can't believe that. So I know from our plan we had hoped to have one start a little bit earlier than the other, and they would have started together based on the need to rush. But it will end up being one after the other. So we're still working for the technical lead person. Dave still comes back to help us to manage this project. We're meeting again next week because the State Information Technology, Dave, as part of the transition team to the new employee, we are still trying to work to get some additional project management support that can be a liaison between our staff, Dave, and IT. We had hoped to have that in place already, but the state IT department has identified a few people to do that work, and they are also applying for multiple jobs, and every time they identify someone for us, they are also on many other lists that are hiring at the same time. So it's a very fluid situation. We hope to nail it down as soon as we can, but it's not the best time for us to start to take our staff and sit in a room in a think tank kind of environment to come up with business rules when you consider we're starting this major project in July and the staff is busy because the biggest filing we have is in July to do campaign finance filings. We have this brand new program for compliance that started in July. We have a brand new program called public financing that started in July, and we have a new program that's called independent expenditures that started in July. And it's also a federal year that we have multiple things going on. So it's not the most ideal time. We probably, and we say this publicly so everybody knows, and we've said it privately, we anticipate a little bit of project creep, because had we started this in February, we think we'd have the staff available to do it on a regular basis. Now we're trying to fit it in as best we can, because all of those other priorities are very time sensitive also. So we're doing the best we can, but we're just acknowledging to the world there'll be a little bit of the estimated number of days to get it done had we started at any other time of year, but now might have been good. And we're pretty bad on estimating time, but we know now it's not our ideal time to start, and I just want to make sure that people understand that. But we're doing the best we can, and everybody's chipping in.
I think we've heard that all through the day here, of people doing more than their normal job duties and going beyond and far and beyond the call of duty. And it showed off in some of the reports, the amount of work that's been accomplished over short periods of time. So it's appreciated by everyone. We go to item 4B on our agenda, please. Vote on certifying ballot proposals for 2014. Anyone care to speak on that?
Yeah, I have this is going to be proposition number one on revising the state's redistricting procedures. Now, the Attorney General sent us some wording that we looked at, and it was sent out, I think, by one of our commissioners to a number of people and organizations to look at, and we had some recommendations made. And I would like to submit some new wording with some of the recommendations that were made. Okay. Does anyone have a copy of this?
You handed them out earlier. It's the red.
Just so when I reference it, you can see it. On the fourth line, the third line where the sentence starts, proposed amendment establish an independent redistricting commission every 10 years, beginning with 2020, with, and it says members appointed. We would like it to say 2 members appointed. By each of the, and then it said by the 4 legislative leaders. It should say, we think, by each of the 4 legislative leaders, and 2 members selected by the 8 legislative appointees, and then in addition that would say prohibits legislators and other elected officials from serving as commissioners. So it clarifies the whole thing. It doesn't change anything specifically, but it makes it more specific and goes, I think, with more intent, the intent of law. The other change goes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 9th line, and the Commission's redistricting plan to legislative enactment provides, and in addition that says, provides that the legislature may only amend the redistricting plan according to the established principles if the Commission's plan is rejected twice by the legislature. In the previous wording by the Attorney General's office, it establishes the legislature as the default restricting body, and the word default throws us back to where we were in the beginning, rather than making this any different than what it was before. So those are the suggested changes. These particular changes, to give credit, they're not mine, were submitted by the Citizens Union and Legal Women Voters, so I want to give them some credit. There were a number of organizations that submitted things, but these seem to be appropriate. So I'd like to submit that as a motion.
Why don't we, we'll vote these one at a time. You move. Have a second.
So we're moving the Attorney General's abstract and then this alternative form of submission of the. We have to vote on both the abstract and the form of submission.
Well, we're changing the abstract, but we're deleting certain things.
The abstract we're leaving the same.
The abstract is correct.
So we're leaving the abstract as drafted by the Attorney General, and we're revising
the state's redistricting.
The form of submission. Right.
So, can somebody from the public be heard?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. So we don't support the changes. We don't have a significant objection, although we don't think they're necessary. We do have a significant objection to the description of the Redistricting Commission as independent, and we note that there's an important provision which has not been described in the description, which we would add after Commission's redistricting plan to legislative enactment. We would add with rules that vary depending on the party control of the legislative houses, which is a very unique aspect of the proposal and has not been identified to the voters. We believe that this is necessary for an accurate description.
Anyway, I'd like to submit what I just read.
Okay.
All right. I second Commissioner Spano's proposal.
All right. On the question, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Two, permitting electronic distribution of state legislative bills.
On the state legislative bills, there were no changes that were recommended to us from the from the Attorney General, the advice we received from the Attorney General with regard to the abstract or the form of submission. Anna, was this where they had the typo, or was it the next one? The typo that we fixed.
It was the other one.
Then it was the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So this is the recommendation of the Attorney General.
So I move we adopt the Attorney General's abstract and form of submission of proposal for proposal number 2, the amendment to the Constitution regarding permitting electronic bills for the legislators.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 3, Smart Schools Bond Act of 2014.
All right, on this one, the legislature actually put the form of submission of the proposal in the text of the Smart Schools Bond Act of 2014. The Attorney General proposed deletion of a phrase. My view is that since the legislature and the governor had already agreed on the wording, that it really wouldn't be appropriate for us to change that wording. So my motion is that we adopt the abstract as drafted by the Attorney General's office, and the form of submission for proposal number 3 be in the form provided in the text of the legislation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Now, we dealt with these in the order of appearance, right? That will appear on the ballot, 1, 2, and 3, right?
Correct.
Yes, which was the order of the second passage for the constitutional amendments and adoption of the Smart Schools Bond.
So the redistricting is number 1, the electronic bill is number 2, and the Smart School Bond Act is number 3. And with your amendments, it will just take a few minutes after the meeting. We'll require the 2 co-chairs to sign. So we will make sure we write the substitution that you had made and get those signed. Our plan is to post them to the website today and certify to the county boards today.
All right, thank you. The next item of business, item C, vote on a resolution certifying Robert E. Antonacci II as participating candidate in the matching fund financing pilot program for the Office of State Controller for the year 2014. Have a motion?
I so move. We've received all the paperwork. This is actually the first candidate to be certified to receive state public matching funds, so it's somewhat of a historic moment.
And a second?
Second.
In this historic moment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I think it's important to point out that under our program, the deadline to submit a certificate, what's the proper word, Bill, to call the
Participating candidate.
the participating candidate to elect. I think we've mentioned several times, it's important to mention since today's the deadline, in case anybody is out there and still has time to do it. We are following the campaign finance model as to a deadline for a candidate to say, I'm interested in joining this program. And the deadline we had picked, and we've talked about now, I think this will be the 3rd meeting, is today, August 1st. So it is whether or not they're running as an independent candidate or any other format, or whether or not they think they meet all of the criteria to actually get the money is a secondary issue. Today is the deadline for a person to apply, and we've been reminding people since it is the last day. We are approving this one, but I just want to say one more time that today is the last day. They have until the end of the day if anyone else is thinking of joining.
End of the day is what time?
5 o'clock.
Business 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
I mean, and to Bob's point, this is just one of the thresholds to receiving money. It doesn't mean that they qualify for the money. It just means that they're...
No, they have to declare via whatever the mechanism is that today's that they would like to. Right?
Our next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September the 4th, 2014.
We have to vote on the campaign finance stuff, and I don't think
Yes.
we need executive session.
Okay.
I think we could just vote, unless someone wants to talk about something.
Like to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the proposal submitted by our co-counsels with respect to the disposition of the campaign finance compliance cases that are outstanding. Bill, you want to put my resolution in proper language?
I think it's adopting the recommendations of staff on those matters.
Right, and is it just this piece of paper?
No, there are 3 reports. Right. Here.
Well, I just want to make sure it's clear on the record what we've done. So there are 4 cases that are being referred to election as operations. There are cases that are being referred to the new compliance unit for addressing filing deficiencies in the manner that council explained during the reports before. And then there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cases being closed as not raising violations of the election law. All right, so that's what we're moving.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Make the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Adjourn to the 4th of September. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Good afternoon. In addition, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Walsh. It's my honor to be conducting the meeting today. I'd ask our fellow commissioners to introduce themselves before we start.
Douglas